Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're kind of setting aside the complex business theories for a moment.
Yeah, we're looking at something that sounds simple, but is really powerful. Problem-solving kids.
Exactly. And don't let the kids part fool you. This comes from Problem Solving 101, a book by Ken Watanabe, who used to be a consultant at McKinsey.
Right, he initially wrote it for Japanese school kids, trying to get them thinking more proactively.
But the fascinating thing is, it blew up with adults in Japan. Parents, managers, even CEOs, they all wanted this simple, clear guide to tackling problems.
And that really tells you something, doesn't it? That this whole problem-solving thing, it's not really about how old you are.
No, it's a mindset, and it's skills you can actually learn.
Absolutely. And Watanabe's framework just clicked with people because it gave them a clear process, for when things feel messy or overwhelming.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive. To unpack Watanabe's ideas and pull out things you can actually use to build that problem-solving muscle. Think of it as a practical guide.
He lays out this really straightforward 4-step process.
Yeah, walk us through that.
Okay, so first, 1, understand the current situation.
Yeah.
Really get clear on what's actually happening.
Right, see the reality first.
Then step 2, identify the root cause. You got to dig deeper than the symptoms, find out why it's happening.
Like a detective.
Kind of, yeah. Third is 3, develop an effective action plan. So what are you actually going to do about it?
Makes sense, planning.
And finally, step 4, execute and adapt. Put the plan into action, but, and this is key, stay flexible. Adjust if things aren't working.
So it's not just thinking, it's doing too. A mix.
Exactly. It's that blend of thinking and acting.
Now, to make it really clear what not to do, the book has these great little caricatures, the non-problem-solving kids.
Ah, yes, those are quite memorable.
There's Miss Sai. She just throws her hands up immediately, gives up super easily.
We've probably all met a Miss Sai, maybe even been one sometimes. Oh, this is too hard.
Totally. Then there's Mr. Critic. Loads of opinions on what's wrong.
But 0 actual solutions offered. All critique, no creation.
Right. And Miss Dreamer, she's got brilliant ideas constantly.
But they just stay ideas, right? Never actually happen.
Exactly. And finally, Mr. Go-Getter. He jumps in, all action.
But often without thinking it through, just charges ahead, sometimes in completely the wrong direction.
It's funny, as you describe them, do you ever see bits of those in yourself or people you know?
Oh, for sure. I think most of us dip into those modes now and then.
Right.
It's human. But the goal is to lean more towards the problem-solving kid model.
So what defines them?
Well, they set goals. They don't shy away from challenges. They think them through. They really try to understand the root cause, that what we talked about.
Okay.
They plan before they act, and they adjust the plan as they go. And importantly, they learn from everything, the wins and the losses.
Learning from failure, too. That's crucial.
Hugely. So, okay, we've seen the pitfalls. Let's dive into that first really critical piece. Understanding the real problem through root cause analysis.
All right, let's get into that. The book uses a really good analogy, comparing it to a doctor figuring out an illness.
Mm-hmm. The symptom versus the cause.
Yeah, like you might have a headache, that's the symptom, but the doctor needs to know why. Is it stress, dehydration, something else?
Because the treatment is totally different, right?
Yeah.
Water for dehydration, maybe stress management techniques for stress. Just popping a painkiller doesn't fix the underlying issue.
Exactly. Treating the symptom is just a temporary fix.
It'll likely just come back if you don't tackle the root cause. And to make this really concrete, the book gives us this great case study, the Mushroom Lovers.
Okay, tell us about them.
So they're this young rock band playing monthly gigs in their high school gym.
Sounds cool.
Yeah, but the problem is hardly anyone shows up. Like maybe 10, 15 people max.
Ouch. That's tough when you're putting yourself out there.
Definitely. It shows how enthusiasm isn't always enough. You need a smart approach, too.
So who's in the band?
You've got Miss Mushroom. She's the singer, really keen. Then Eggplant on guitar and Tofu on drums.
Eggplant and Tofu.
Uh-huh, yeah. So Ms. Mushroom sorts out the venue, the gym. But she's getting pretty down about the empty room, understandably.
What was their first attempt at getting people in?
Well, it was pretty basic. Miss Mushroom booked the space, and Eggplant and Tofu just, told a couple of friends.
And that didn't work so well.
Clearly not. So this is where they start actually problem solving. Their first real step, and this is useful for anyone listening, was to try and figure out why nobody was coming, systematically. They used a logic tree.
Okay, explain a logic tree, like a flow chart.
Sort of, yeah. It's a way to visually break down a problem, You start with the main issue, low attendance, and branch out into possible categories of reasons.
Like what categories?
They came up with 3 main ones. First, awareness, did people even know about the concerts? Second, desire and ability, did people want to come, and could they come? And third, repeat attendance, why weren't the few who did come once coming back?
That's quite structured, breaking it down.
Exactly. It stops you from just guessing randomly. They also mention another tool, the yes-no tree.
How does that work?
It's even simpler, really. You ask a series of yes-no questions to drill down. The book uses the example of oversleeping.
Okay.
Like, did your alarm go off? Yes. Okay, did you hear it? No. Aha. Potential root cause. You slept through the alarm. It helps eliminate possibilities methodically.
Got it. Very logical. So back to the mushroom lovers. What did eggplant and tofu think was the main problem at first?
Well, their initial hypothesis, their guess, was that it was mostly about awareness.
Because they hadn't done much promotion.
Exactly. They'd only told a few people, plus Miss Mushroom was apparently a bit shy about, actively promoting it.
So they figured maybe hardly anyone even knew.
Yeah, they literally guessed maybe only 5% of the school knew about the gigs. And they thought, okay, if people did know, maybe 60% of them would show up. Just throwing numbers out there, really.
But they didn't just leave it as a guess.
And this is the crucial bit. No, they decided to test it, get some actual data.
Yeah.
They put together a quick survey for the whole school, students and teachers. Asked 3 simple questions during homeroom.
What were the questions?
Basically, 1, do you know the mushroom lovers have monthly concerts?
Yeah.
2, have you ever been to one? 3, do you go regularly? Simple, direct.
Smart. Get the facts.
And the facts. Well, they told a very different story. What did they find?
They found that 30% of the school did know about the concerts.
30%. That's way more than their 5% guess.
6 times higher. So awareness wasn't nearly as bad as they thought. But here's the kicker.
Yeah.
Only 10% of those people who knew had ever actually attended.
Only 10%. Okay, that's low.
Right. But then of the people who had attended, 80% were regulars. They kept coming back.
Wow. Okay, so the data really flipped their hypothesis on its head.
Completely. It wasn't primarily a nobody knows problem. It was a people know but aren't coming problem.
That's a huge insight. Changes everything. Exactly. It forced them to ask a much better question. Why aren't the people who know about us showing up? That shift from assumption to a data-driven question, that's core problem solving.
So what did they do next? They had this new question.
They needed more qualitative data now. Not just numbers, but reasons. So they decided to talk to people.
Makes sense.
They interviewed 5 students who knew about the concerts, but had never been.
And what did they hear? What were the reasons?
It was a mix of things. Some said they didn't know what kind of music the band played or, frankly, if they were any good.
The quality question.
Yeah. Some people just assumed, high school band, probably not great. Plus, the timing was an issue noon on Saturdays.
What was wrong with that?
It clashed with other stuff. Apparently, big baseball games were often at the same time.
Competition for their time.
Right. And, of course, some people just weren't into music much anyway. But the interviews also surfaced a potential solution.
Which was?
Moving the concert time. They found out that shifting it to Saturday evening would actually work better for a lot of people, avoiding those clashes.
Okay, so that's why people weren't coming at all. But what about the repeat attendance issue? Why weren't more first-timers becoming regulars?
They looked into that, too. They talked to people who had been but hadn't become regulars. Well, the feedback on the band's actual playing was mostly positive. People seemed to enjoy the performance itself.
Okay, so not a quality issue for those folks.
Not really. The main thing that came up was boredom with a set list.
Playing the same songs over and over.
Exactly. Apparently, they had a limited repertoire and just played the same stuff each month. People got tired of it.
Did they confirm that?
Yeah. They specifically tracked down the 3 people they knew had stopped coming, and all 3 said the repetitive set list was the reason they lost interest.
Wow. So putting it all together, what's the big lesson here?
I think it really highlights how dangerous assumptions can be. They assumed it was awareness.
Right, and they could have just made more flyers, wasted effort.
Precisely. But by gathering data, the survey, and then digging deeper with conversations, they uncovered the real mix of reasons. The timing, the uncertainty about their music, the repetitive songs, it was much more complex.
Getting that nuanced understanding was key.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And like we said, finding the root cause is critical, but it's only half the battle. You then have to figure out what to do about it.
Develop that action plan.
Exactly. Which is what eggplant and tofu did next. They took all that feedback and started brainstorming solutions.
Back to the logic tree.
Yeah, they used it again, but this time focusing on communication that would not just raise awareness, but actually make people want to check them out.
Okay, so what kinds of ideas did they come up with?
Oh, a whole bunch. The usual suspects like flyers, posters, school announcements, word of mouth.
Standard stuff.
Yeah, but also things like the school newspaper, maybe even local papers or radio. And digital stuff too, message boards, email, a basic website.
Covering a lot of bases.
And critically, they were thinking about how to use these channels. Not just announce the concert on the radio, but maybe try to get a song played. Give people a taste. Generate actual interest, not just awareness.
Smart, addressing that what kind of music
Yeah,
issue.
exactly. And they also added solutions based directly on the interview feedback.
Like changing the time.
Yep. Move the concert to 5 p.m. Saturday. Also, tackle the repetition. Plan to switch out 20% of the songs each time. Change the order. Keep it fresh.
And anything else?
Yeah, a fun one. Get Tofu, the drummer, to tell some jokes or stories about the band between songs.
Add some personality, connect with the audience more.
Right. Just make it more of an entertaining experience overall.
Okay, so they ended up with what, like a dozen different ideas?
13, actually. A pretty solid list. But now they had a new problem.
Which was?
How do you actually do all 13 things, especially with limited time before the next gig? They needed to prioritize.
Yeah, okay. How did they approach that?
They use another great tool, a 2x2 matrix. Simple, but super effective.
Explain the matrix. What are the axes?
On one axis, you've got potential impact. Is this idea likely to make a big difference or just a small one?
High impact versus low impact. Got it.
And on the other axis, ease of implementation. Is this going to be easy to do or really hard and time-consuming?
Easy versus hard. Okay, I can see that.
So you plot each of your 13 ideas onto this grid.
And the goal is to focus on the high impact, easy ones first.
That's usually the sweet spot, yeah.
Yeah.
The quick wins, get some momentum.
What about the high impact, hard ones?
Those you probably need to plan more carefully, maybe break them down or see if you can make them easier. The low impact ones, well, maybe you do them if they're super easy, otherwise maybe they drop off the list.
Can you give an example of how they categorize their ideas?
Sure. They thought performing live in every single classroom during homeroom.
Whoa, that's ambitious.
Right. Potentially high impact, gets their music heard directly,
Yeah.
but logistically, really hard. Lots of time, effort, permissions needed. So high impact, hard.
Okay. And a low impact one.
Maybe just posting the basic concert info on the general school message boards. Easy to do, sure. But they figured few students really check those boards, and just seeing the date and time might not be enough to convince someone. So low impact, easy.
That makes sense. But they found a way to make some hard things easier, right?
Yes. And this is another key takeaway collaboration. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
How did that play out for them?
Well, take making posters. None of the band members were great artists. So making a really cool, eye-catching poster seemed hard. Maybe not worth the effort if it looked amateurish.
Low impact, hard, maybe?
Potentially. But then Tofu had an idea. Ask their friend, John Octopus, who was known for being a great artist.
Yeah. Leverage someone else's skills.
Exactly. They asked John. He agreed to design it. Suddenly, creating a great poster went from hard to easy. And a good poster could have a much higher impact.
So getting help can actually shift where an idea sits on that matrix.
Totally. And because they adopted this collaborative mindset, reaching out for help where needed, they actually managed to implement all 13 actions.
All 13. Wow. They really went for it.
They did. They divided up the tasks, got help, and just executed the plan they'd built based on their analysis.
Okay, so the million-dollar question. After all that work, the analysis, the interviews, the planning, the prioritizing, the execution, what happened at the next concert? Did it work?
Well, the book describes this moment. After they finished their first song, there was this pause. Silence in the gym.
Oh, no. That sounds terrifying for them.
You can imagine. They were probably thinking, did we get it wrong again?
Yeah.
But then the silence broke. Apparently there was just this huge wave of applause and cheering, way louder than they'd ever heard before.
Yes. So people actually came.
Oh, yeah. 200 people showed up.
200 from 10 or 15. That's incredible.
An absolute transformation. The crowd was apparently super enthusiastic, chanting their names. Even Miss Mushroom, the usually shy singer, was apparently overcome, hugging eggplant and tofu, tears of joy.
Wow. That must have felt amazing after all that frustration.
Absolutely. And the numbers backed it up, too. Remember those survey stats?
Yeah, 30% awareness, 10% attendance of those aware.
Well, after their efforts, Awareness jumped to 90% of the school.
90%. Huge jump.
And crucially, 50% of those who were aware actually came to the concert. Half of them.
That's the big number, converting awareness into attendance.
Exactly. And even better for their future. 90% of the people who came said they plan to come back next time.
So they fixed the repeat attendance issue, too, with the new songs and Tofu's jokes.
Seems like it. It was just a massive success, all driven by that structured problem-solving approach.
Okay, let's really distill the lessons here for listeners. What are the key takeaways from the mushroom lover's journey?
I think the biggest one is moving past your initial assumptions. Their first guess about awareness was just wrong.
Right, you have to actually check your assumptions, gather some facts.
And then systematically figure out the root causes. Don't just treat the symptoms. They needed to know why people weren't coming, not just that they weren't coming.
The timing, the music uncertainty, the repetition.
Yeah, all those pieces. And then develop solutions that directly target those specific causes. Don't just throw random stuff at the wall.
And prioritize. Use something like that impact-east matrix so you're putting your energy in the right places.
Definitely. It's a really powerful example of how a methodical approach, even for something like a high school band, can make a huge difference.
It really is. And you mentioned the book goes on from here.
It does, yeah. It builds on this foundation.
Yeah.
The next stage it discusses is really about setting clear goals and breaking big dreams down.
Okay.
It uses the example of their friend John Octopus, the poster designer who wants to buy a computer. How does he make that big goal achievable?
Breaking down big goals into smaller steps. That sounds like a whole other useful topic.
It really is.
Yeah.
Maybe something for a future deep dive.
Definitely sounds like it. But for now, maybe a final thought for our listeners based on what we've covered today.
Yeah, I'd say, think about a challenge you're facing right now, big or small. Just take a moment. Are you sure you understand the real reason behind it?
Or are you running on assumptions, like the mushroom lovers initially were?
Exactly. What's one simple thing you could do? Maybe ask one question, gather one piece of data, just to get a slightly clearer picture of the actual root cause.
Starting that process of digging a little deeper.
Right, just taking that first step towards truly understanding the problem. That alone can be incredibly powerful.